Swami Prabhupada, chapter 12, text 6 and 7.
Yes.
Ye tu sarvani karmani, maya sanyasa matpura, anava mam dhyayanta upasate, te samaham samutara, mrityu samsara sagarat, bhavami na chirat parta, mani abesita chetasam. But those who worship up all their activities unto me, and being engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, have fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prita, deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It is explicitly stated here that the devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. In pure devotional service, one comes to the realization that God is great and that the individual soul is subordinate to Him. His duty is to render service to the Lord, and if he does not, then he will render service to Maya. As stated before, the Supreme Lord can be appreciated only by devotional service. Therefore, one should be fully devoted. One should fix his mind fully on Krishna in order to achieve Him. One should work only for Krishna. It does not matter in what kind of work one engages, but that work should be done only for Krishna. That is the standard of devotional service. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His life's mission is to please Krishna, and he can sacrifice everything for Krishna's satisfaction, just as Arjuna did in the Battle of Kurukshetra. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Such transcendental chanting attracts the devotee to the personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord even promises that without delay he will deliver a pure devotee thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process. And others take the opportunity in various ways. But as far as the devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the Lord Himself takes him. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. In the Varaha Purana, this verse appears. Nayami Paramam Sthanam Archir Adi Gatim Vina Garu Skandam Arupya Yatekchan Anivar Itaha. The purport of this verse is that a devotee needs to practice Astanga Yoga in order to transfer his soul to the spiritual planets. The responsibility is taken by the Supreme Lord Himself. He clearly states here that He Himself becomes the deliverer. A child is completely cared for by his parents, and thus his position is secure. Similarly, a devotee does not need to endeavor to transfer himself by yoga practice to other planets. Rather, the Supreme Lord, by His great mercy, comes at once, riding on His bird carrier, Garuda, and at once delivers the devotee from material existence. Although a man who has fallen in the ocean may struggle very hard and may be very expert in swimming, he cannot save himself. But if someone comes and picks him up from the water, then he is easily rescued. Similarly, the Lord picks up the devotee from this material existence. One simply has to practice the easy process of Krishna consciousness and fully engage himself in devotional service. Any intelligent man should always prefer the process of devotional service to all other paths. In the Narayanaya, this is confirmed as follows. Ya vai sadhana sampati purushartha chatustaye taya vinatad apnoti naro narayanaya ashraya. The purport of this verse is that one should engage in the different processes of fruitive activity or cultivate knowledge by mental speculation. The purpose of this verse is that one should not engage in the different processes of fruitive activity or cultivate knowledge by the mental speculative process. One who is devoted to the Supreme Personality can attain all the benefits of other yogic processes, speculation, rituals, sacrifices, charities, etc. That is the specific benediction of devotional service. By chanting the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A devotee of the Lord can reach the supreme destination easily and happily. But this destination cannot be approached by any other process. The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is stated in the 18th chapter. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamikam saranam vraja aham tvam sarvipapavyo mokshaishyami masucha. One should give up all other processes of self-realization and simply execute devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That will enable one to reach the highest perfection of life. There is no need for one to consider the sinful actions of his past life, because the Supreme Lord fully takes charge of him. Therefore, one should not futilely try to deliver himself in spiritual realization. Let everyone take shelter of the Supreme Omnipotent Godhead, Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. Haribo, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. So this verse is being quoted. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamikam saranam vrajaham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshisyami ma suchaha. One should give up all other processes of self-realization and simply execute devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That will enable one to reach the highest perfection of life. Well, we should take this very seriously, especially that last sentence. That will enable one to reach the highest perfection of life. That is, giving up all other processes of self-realization and simply executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness. That will enable one to reach the highest perfection of life. So, how do you do that? Constantly chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And one should not think, oh, I've committed so many activities in the past. I don't deserve to be a devotee. But because Krishna will fully take charge of the devotee who surrenders to him, therefore one should not futilely try to deliver himself in spiritual realization Let everyone take shelter of the supreme omnipotent Godhead Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, now we will go to text number 8. And text number 8 says, Mai eva mana adhatsva, Mai im niveshaya, nivasisyasi Mai eva ata urdvam nasamsaya. Just fix your mind upon me, Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus, you always without a doubt. Now, this is one of those very special verses. It's very good to memorize this verse. Mai eva mana atasva, mai budem niveshaya, nivasisyasi mai eva ata urdvam samsaya. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without doubt. And of course, the purport says, one who is engaged in Lord Krishna's devotional service lives in a direct relationship with the Supreme Lord. So there is no doubt that his position is transcendental from the very beginning. A devotee does not live on the material platform. He lives in Krishna. The holy name of the Lord and the Lord are non-different. Therefore, when the devotee chants Hare Krishna, Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on the tongue of the devotee. When he offers Krishna food, Krishna directly eats eatable. And the devotee becomes Krishnized by eating the remnants. One who does not engage in such service cannot understand how this is so, although this is a process recommended in the Bhagavad Gita and in other Vedic literatures. Yes, one becomes Krishnized by eating Krishna prasadam. That is a very wonderful statement, and it's a fact also that you become Krishnized, fully thinking always of Krishna and serving always Krishna, love and devotion. And the background is always eating Krishna prasadam to give you the determination and the inspiration to open Krishna. Okay, so my dear devotees, may you all be Krishnized by eating Krishna prasadam. Text number 9. Atachitam samadatam na saknos simanishtiram abhyasa yoga tato mam ichaptum dhananjaya. My dear Arjuna, the winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. Well, okay, we should engage always without deviation in the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. And that will develop our desire to attain Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, 2 different processes of Bhakti Yoga are indicated. The first applies to one who has actually developed an attachment for Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, by transcendental love. And the other is for one who has not developed an attachment for the Supreme Person by transcendental love. For this second class, there are different prescribed rules and regulations one can follow to be ultimately elevated to the stage of attachment to Krishna. Bhakti yoga is the purification of the senses. At the present moment in material existence, the senses are always impure, being engaged in meditation. But by the practice of bhakti yoga, these senses can become purified, and in the purified state, directly in contact with the Supreme Lord. In this material existence, I may, and they come directly in contact with the Supreme Lord. In this material existence, I may be engaged in some service to some master, but I don't really lovingly serve my master. I simply serve to get money. And the master also is not in love. He takes service from me and pays me. So there is no question of love. But for spiritual life, one be elevated to the pure stage of love. That stage of love can be achieved by practice of devotional service performed with the present senses. This love of God is now in a dormant state in everyone's heart. And their love of God is manifested in different ways, but it is contaminated by material association. Now the heart has to be purified of the material association, and that dormant natural love for Krishna has to be revived. That is the whole process. To practice the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, one should, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, follow certain principles. One should rise early in the morning, take baths, enter the temple and offer prayers and chant Hare Krishna. Then collect flowers to offer to the deity. Cook foodstuffs to offer to the deity. Take prasadam. There are various rules and regulations which one should follow, and one should constantly hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from pure devotees. This practice can help one arise to the level of love of God, and then he is sure of his progress into the spiritual kingdom of God. This practice of bhakti yoga, under the rules and regulations, with the direction of a spiritual master, will surely bring one to the stage of love of God. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text number 10. Abhyase pi asamarto sti. Mat karma paramo bhava. Madartam apikarmani kurvam siddhim avapsyasi. If you cannot practice the regulations of bhakti yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who is not able even to practice the regulative principles of bhakti yoga under the guidance of a spiritual master can still be drawn to this perfectional stage by working for the Supreme Lord. How to do this work has already been explained in the 55th verse of the 11th chapter. One should be sympathetic to the propagation of Krishna consciousness. There are many devotees who are engaged in the propagation of Krishna consciousness, and they require help. So, even if one cannot directly practice the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, he tries to help such work. Every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor. Just as in business, one requires a place to stay, some capital to use, some labor, and some organization to expand. So the same is required in the service. The only difference is that in materialism, one works for sense gratification. The same work, however, can be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna, and that is spiritual activity. If one has sufficient money, he can help in building an office or temple for propagating Krishna consciousness. or he can help with publications. There are various fields of activity, and one should be interested in such activities. If one cannot sacrifice the results of his activities, the same person can still sacrifice some percentage to propagate Krishna consciousness. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher state of love for God, whereupon one becomes perfect. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's very nice that Prabhupada says that uh, one needs to have land, capital, organization, and labor. Well, land we have, capital, some we have, organization we have, and labor we definitely have. That means we can have active uh, engagement in Krishna consciousness in this lifetime to develop our love and devotion for Krishna. And every endeavor requires land, capital, organization, and labor. Just as in business, one requires a place to stay, some capital, some labor, and some organization to expand. So the same is required in the service of Krishna. The only difference is that in materialism, one works for sense gratification. The same work, however, can be performed for the satisfaction of Krishna, and that is spiritual activity. If one has sufficient money, he can help in building an office or a temple for propagating Krishna consciousness, or he can help with publications. There are various fields of activity, and one should be interested in such activities. If one cannot see the results of his activity, the same person can still sacrifice some percentage to propagate Krishna consciousness. So when it says some percentage of the income that they have. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher state of love of God, whereupon one becomes perfect. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, my dear, we'll stop right there for today. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Okay, our takeaway for today is the following. There are various fields of activity, and one should be interested in such activities. If one cannot sacrifice the results of his activity, the same person can still sacrifice some percentage, meaning some percentage of their income, to propagate Krishna consciousness. This voluntary service to the cause of Krishna consciousness will help one to rise to a higher state of love for God, whereupon one becomes perfect. Haribol. I pray, my dear devotees, that you all become perfect in this lifetime by engaging in devotional service for Krishna with love and devotion. And that means there has to be surrender. You have to give up bad habits and take up all good habits of serving Krishna with love and devotion. Haribol. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll ask one more time. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, so thank you very much. Now I'm going to go to the temple and chant Hare Krishna. Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu. Okay. Now, get ready to go.